The rain hammered against the windows of the Blackwood mansion as Marcus Blackwood stood in his study, staring at yet another resignation letter. The elegant paper trembled slightly in his hands, not from the storm outside, but from the frustration building inside him. This was the 7th nanny to quit in 6 months. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood," the letter read, "but I cannot continue caring for children who refuse to acknowledge my presence. Your twins appear to live in their own world, completely disconnected from reality. I believe they require specialized care that I cannot provide." Marcus crumpled the letter and threw it into the fireplace, watching as the flames consumed another failed attempt at normalcy. At 35, he had built a technology empire worth hundreds of millions, but he couldn't solve the mystery of his own children. Emma and Ethan, his 8-year-old twins, had been acting strangely since their mother died in a car accident 2 years ago. They rarely spoke, never made eye contact, and seemed to navigate the world without truly seeing it. Doctors had examined them countless times. Psychiatrists had sessions with them. Everyone reached the same conclusion. The children were dealing with severe trauma that manifested as selective blindness and withdrawal. The medical term was psychogenic blindness. They said the twins' minds had shut down their sight as a way to cope with losing their mother. It was temporary, the doctors assured him, but required patience and the right care. Marcus walked to his office window and looked out at the gardens where his children used to play with their mother. Sarah had been the light of their family. She would spend hours with Emma and Ethan reading stories, teaching them about flowers, and laughing at their silly games. When she died, it felt like all the color drained from their world. Now, the twins moved through the mansion like ghosts. They ate their meals in silence, their eyes unfocused and distant. They never played together anymore, never smiled, never seemed to truly see anything around them. The staff whispered that it was heartbreaking to watch such young children living in darkness. Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper, knocked softly on the study door. She had been with the family for 15 years and had watched the twins grow from babies into the lost children they had become. Mr. Blackwood, the employment agency, called. "They have another candidate for the nanny position," she said gently. Marcus sighed heavily. "What's different about this one? Another child psychology expert? Another specialist in trauma recovery? Actually, sir, she doesn't have formal training with special needs children. Her name is Sophia Martinez. She's 26, worked as a teacher in a small village school, and recently moved to the city." The agency said she specifically asked about this position after hearing about the children. "Someone actually wants to work here?" Marcus was surprised. Most candidates withdrew their applications after learning about the twins' condition. She said she's not afraid of challenging situations and believes every child deserves love and patience, regardless of their circumstances, Mrs. Henderson continued. Marcus considered this. Maybe formal training wasn't what his children needed. Maybe they needed someone who would see them as children first, not as medical cases. Schedule an interview for tomorrow morning, he decided. The next day, Sophia Martinez arrived at the mansion 30 minutes early. She stood outside the impressive gates, adjusting her simple blue dress and taking deep breaths. The employment agency had warned her about the position. 2 traumatized children who had withdrawn from the world, multiple nannies who had failed, and a grieving father who was running out of hope. But something about the situation called to Sophia. Growing up in a poor family, she had learned that love and patience could overcome almost any obstacle. Her grandmother used to say that children were like flowers. They would bloom again if given the right care and environment. Mrs. Henderson greeted Sophia at the front door and led her through the mansion's elegant halls. The house was beautiful, but felt cold and empty, like a museum rather than a home where children lived. "The children are in the playroom," Mrs. Henderson explained as they climbed the grand staircase. "Though they don't really play anymore. They mostly sit quietly and, well, you'll see." The playroom was enormous, filled with expensive toys, books, and games that looked barely touched. In the corner, near a large window, sat Emma and Ethan. Emma was a beautiful little girl with long dark hair and delicate features. Ethan had his father's strong jaw and intelligent eyes. Both children stared straight ahead with vacant expressions, their hands folded in their laps. Sophia's heart broke seeing them. They looked like porcelain dolls, perfect but lifeless. "Emma, Ethan, this is Miss Sophia," Mrs. Henderson announced. "She's here to meet you." Neither child responded or turned their heads. They continued staring at nothing, lost in their own worlds. Marcus appeared in the doorway, watching to see how this new candidate would react. Most people became uncomfortable within minutes, unsure how to connect with children who seemed unreachable. But Sophia did something unexpected. Instead of trying to get the children's attention or speaking loudly to them, she quietly sat down on the floor nearby and simply observed. She watched how they breathed, how they positioned themselves, the small movements they made. She didn't try to force interaction or test their responses. After several minutes, Sophia began humming softly, a gentle melody her grandmother used to sing. It was a Spanish lullaby about little birds finding their way home. She didn't sing words, just the tune, creating a peaceful atmosphere in the room. Marcus noticed something remarkable. For the first time in months, his children's shoulders relaxed slightly. Emma's head tilted just a fraction toward Sophia, and Ethan's breathing seemed to deepen. It was subtle, but after 2 years of watching his children withdraw further each day, Marcus recognized any sign of response. The interview lasted an hour, but Sophia spent most of it simply being present with the children. She asked Marcus practical questions about routines and medical needs, but her attention remained focused on Emma and Ethan. She seemed to understand that healing would require time and patience, not dramatic interventions. "When can you start?" Marcus asked as they concluded the meeting. "Tomorrow, if you'd like," Sophia replied. "But I need you to understand something. I don't see your children as broken or damaged. They're hurt and scared, but they're still complete little people with their own thoughts and feelings. My job isn't to fix them. It's to love them while they heal themselves." Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in months: hope. This young woman seemed to see his children differently than everyone else. Maybe that was exactly what they needed. As Sophia prepared to leave, she turned back to look at the twins one more time. Emma had shifted slightly in her chair, and Ethan's fingers were moving in a small rhythm that matched the lullaby Sophia had hummed. They were still there, somewhere inside their protective shells. Sophia was determined to help them find their way back to the light. That evening, Marcus found himself actually looking forward to the next day. For the first time since Sarah's death, someone had entered their home who didn't see his children as problems to be solved. Sophia saw them as children who needed love. Maybe love was exactly what they had been missing all along. Sophia arrived at the Blackwood mansion the next morning carrying a small, worn backpack and a thermos of hot chocolate that smelled like cinnamon. Mrs. Henderson met her at the service entrance, as Sophia had requested. She wanted to learn the house from the staff's perspective, understanding the daily rhythms that kept the family functioning. The children wake at 7, breakfast at 8, and then Mrs. Henderson paused. Well, then they usually just sit, sometimes in the playroom, sometimes in the garden room. They follow routines, but it's like watching sleepwalkers. Sophia nodded, absorbing every detail. What did they love before? What made them happy? Mrs. Henderson's face softened with memory. Emma adored music. She would dance around the house, singing little songs. And Ethan was fascinated by insects and small animals. He would spend hours watching ants in the garden or feeding birds. Mrs. Blackwood encouraged their interests. "Their mother sounds wonderful," Sophia said gently. "She was magic with them. After she died, it was like someone turned off a light switch. The children just disappeared inside themselves." Sophia spent the morning observing the twins' routine without interfering. She watched Emma mechanically eat her breakfast, chewing each bite exactly 20 times before swallowing. She noticed how Ethan counted things: the number of steps to the playroom, the patterns on the carpet, the books on the shelf. These weren't random behaviors. The children had created structure to feel safe in a world that had become unpredictable. Around noon, Sophia made her first intentional move. She sat in the garden room where the twins had positioned themselves by the large windows. Instead of trying to engage them directly, she opened her backpack and pulled out a small wooden flute. The instrument had belonged to her grandmother, hand-carved by Sophia's grandfather as a courting gift 60 years ago. Sophia began playing the same lullaby she had hummed the day before, letting the gentle melody fill the silent room. Emma's breathing changed immediately. Her chest rose and fell in rhythm with the music. Ethan's fingers, which had been drumming silently on his knee, stilled completely. Both children remained motionless, but Sophia could sense their attention focusing like flowers turning toward sunlight. After the song ended, Sophia continued sitting quietly, occasionally playing soft melodies. She didn't speak to the children or try to make them respond. She simply offered the gift of music and allowed them to receive it however they chose. On the third day, something shifted. Emma began rocking slightly when Sophia played certain songs, a tiny movement that suggested the music was reaching something deep inside her. Ethan started positioning himself closer to Sophia, though still maintaining careful distance. Sophia decided to introduce something new. She brought a small terrarium containing a tiny ecosystem, moss, small plants, and a few harmless insects. Instead of presenting it to the children, she simply placed it on a table where they could observe if they chose. The response was immediate. Ethan's head turned toward the terrarium, his eyes focusing for the first time in weeks. He didn't approach it, but Sophia could see his attention was completely captured by the small world contained in glass. Marcus watched these interactions through the doorway, amazed by the subtle changes in his children. Previous nannies had tried everything: bright toys, loud games, constant chatter, all of which seemed to drive Emma and Ethan further into themselves. Sophia's quiet presence was creating something different. "How is she doing it?" Marcus asked Mrs. Henderson privately. "She's not trying to pull them out of their world, sir. She's building a bridge to it," Mrs. Henderson observed wisely. By the end of the first week, Sophia had established a rhythm with the twins. Mornings began with quiet music. Afternoons included time near the terrarium, where Ethan would now sit close enough to watch the insects moving through their miniature landscape. Emma had begun humming very softly during the musical sessions, though she seemed unaware she was making sound. Sophia documented these small victories in a journal, noting patterns and preferences. Emma responded to melodies in minor keys, while Ethan was fascinated by rhythmic patterns. Both children seemed most relaxed during rainy weather, as if the sound of water provided additional comfort. The breakthrough came during Sophia's second week. She was playing her flute when Emma suddenly stood up and walked directly to where Sophia sat. Without speaking or making eye contact, Emma sat down right beside her, close enough that their arms were almost touching. Sophia's heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm and continue playing. This was the first time Emma had initiated any kind of proximity to another person since her mother's death. Marcus, who had been watching from the hallway, felt tears fill his eyes. His daughter was still there, still capable of connection. She had just been waiting for someone who would meet her, where she was, instead of demanding she come back to where she had been. Ethan's breakthrough was different, but equally significant. Sophia had been observing the terrarium when she noticed one of the small insects had died. Instead of quickly removing it, she decided to see how Ethan would react to this natural cycle. Ethan approached the terrarium slowly, studying the still insect with intense focus. Then, for the first time in months, he spoke. "It's sleeping forever," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia's breath caught. These were the first words either child had spoken in her presence. "Yes," she replied gently. "Sometimes living things go to sleep forever. It's part of nature's way." Ethan nodded solemnly, processing this information. Like Mama, the simple statement hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a child's attempt to understand loss. Sophia felt the profound trust Ethan was showing by sharing this thought. Like Mama, Sophia agreed softly. But the love she gave you is still alive. Love doesn't go to sleep forever. Ethan considered this for a long moment, then carefully reached into the terrarium and gently moved the dead insect to a corner, creating a tiny resting place among the moss. That evening, Marcus found Sophia in the garden, sitting on a bench and writing in her journal. He approached carefully, not wanting to disturb her concentration. "They spoke today," he said simply. Sophia looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Emma hummed a melody I've never played before. She created something new. And Ethan, he's beginning to process his grief instead of hiding from it. "How do you know what they need?" Marcus asked, sitting beside her. "I don't know exactly," Sophia admitted. "But I know they're not broken. They're protecting themselves the only way they knew how. Children are incredibly resilient, but they heal in their own time and their own way." Marcus studied Sophia's face in the fading light. There was something special about this young woman, something that went beyond professional training or technique. She seemed to understand his children on an intuitive level that even he struggled to reach. "What happens next?" he asked. 3 weeks into Sophia's employment, the Blackwood mansion felt different. The oppressive silence that had dominated the house for months was slowly being replaced by gentle sounds. Sophia's flute music, the occasional whisper from one of the twins, even the soft padding of small feet as Emma and Ethan began moving around the house more freely. Sophia had established what she called discovery time each afternoon. Instead of structured activities, she would introduce small, interesting objects or experiences and allow the children to explore them naturally. A bowl of smooth river stones, a prism that created rainbow patterns on the wall, or dried flowers that released sweet scents when touched. Emma gravitated toward anything that made beautiful sounds or had interesting textures. She would spend long periods running her fingers over silk scarves or listening to wind chimes. Ethan remained fascinated by living things. He now spent hours observing the terrarium and had begun asking Sophia quiet questions about the plants and insects inside. "Where do they go when it gets cold?" he whispered one afternoon, watching a tiny spider build its web. "Some find warm places to sleep through winter," Sophia explained. "Others lay eggs, so their babies can start fresh in spring. Nature always finds a way to continue." These conversations were precious to Sophia. Each question meant Ethan was engaging with the world again, showing curiosity instead of withdrawal. Emma communicated differently, through music, touch, and increasingly through eye contact that lasted a few seconds longer each day. The real test came when Marcus announced he would be traveling to New York for business meetings. In the past, any disruption to routine would cause the twins to retreat completely. Previous nannies had reported days of total silence and refusal to eat when their father was away. "I can postpone the trip," Marcus offered, clearly worried about leaving the children. "They'll be okay," Sophia said with quiet confidence. "We've built enough trust that they can handle small changes now." Marcus studied her face, seeing determination mixed with genuine care for his children. Over the past weeks, he had watched Sophia work with Emma and Ethan, and her intuitive understanding of their needs continued to amaze him. She seemed to know exactly when to offer comfort and when to give space, when to introduce something new, and when to stick with familiar routines. The morning Marcus left, both children clung to their established routine, but kept glancing toward Sophia for reassurance. She remained calm and steady, playing her usual morning music and preparing their favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries arranged in smiley faces. "Papa will be back in 3 days," Sophia explained gently. "While he's gone, we can work on something special to surprise him when he returns." Emma looked up at this, her interest clearly piqued. Ethan moved closer, his curiosity overcoming his anxiety about the change in routine. "What kind of surprise?" Ethan asked softly. "I thought we might create a garden memory book," Sophia suggested. "We can press flowers and leaves, write little stories about what we observe, Maybe even draw pictures of the insects you love, Ethan. The project turned out to be exactly what the children needed. Working together on something creative gave them focus and purpose while their father was away. Emma discovered she loved arranging pressed flowers into beautiful patterns. Ethan carefully drew detailed pictures of beetles and butterflies, his artistic talent emerging for the first time since his mother's death. On the second day, something remarkable happened. Emma began singing while she worked. Not just humming, but actual words to a song Sophia had never heard before. Little flowers sleeping tight, wake up in the morning light. Emma sang softly, her voice clear and sweet. Sophia realized Emma was creating her own melody and lyrics. The child's musical creativity was resurging, like a spring that had been temporarily blocked, but was now flowing freely again. "That's beautiful, Emma," Sophia said gently. "Did you make up that song?" Emma nodded shyly, then continued singing as she worked on her flower arrangements. The sound filled the room with joy that had been absent for so long. Ethan was having his own breakthrough. While drawing a detailed picture of a caterpillar, he began talking about the transformation process. "It goes into a cocoon and becomes something completely different," he explained to Sophia. "But it's still the same creature inside, just new." Sophia understood the deeper meaning of his words. Ethan was processing the concept of transformation, perhaps beginning to understand that people could change and grow even after experiencing loss. "Do you think the caterpillar is afraid when it goes into the cocoon?" Sophia asked thoughtfully. Ethan considered this carefully. "Maybe, but maybe it knows something beautiful is going to happen." The wisdom in his words brought tears to Sophia's eyes. This 8-year-old boy was finding his own way to understand that growth often requires moving through difficult, dark periods before emerging into something new and beautiful. When Marcus returned from his trip, he found his children transformed. Emma ran to greet him at the door. The first time she had shown such spontaneous physical affection since her mother's death. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the garden room, chattering excitedly about their project. Papa, look what we made. Sophia taught us to press flowers, and I made up songs, and Ethan drew the most beautiful pictures." Marcus stared in amazement. His daughter was animated, talkative, and, most importantly, making eye contact while she spoke. The vacant, distant look was gone, replaced by genuine excitement and connection. Ethan approached more cautiously, but with obvious pride in their work. "We made a memory book," he said, holding out their creation. Sophia said memories are like pressed flowers. They keep the beauty even when things change. Marcus accepted the book with trembling hands. Page after page showed evidence of his children's healing. Emma's artistic flower arrangements were paired with Ethan's detailed drawings and both children's handwritten observations about nature. But more than that, he could see their personalities emerging again. Emma's creativity and joy, Ethan's careful observation and thoughtful nature. "This is incredible," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of both of you." But what moved him most was seeing Sophia in the background, quietly cleaning up art supplies and giving the family space to reconnect. She had created this moment not by pushing or forcing, but by providing the children with tools for expression and the safety to use them. That evening, after the children were asleep, Marcus found Sophia in the kitchen, preparing her materials for the next day's activities. By the 6th week of Sophia's employment, the transformation in the Blackwood household was nothing short of miraculous. Emma's laughter could be heard echoing through the mansion's halls, while Ethan had begun asking endless questions about everything from why birds migrate to how computers work. The children had been lost in their own worlds, were now eagerly exploring the larger world around them. But it was during a routine eye exam that the family received the most shocking news of all. Dr. Patricia Wong, the ophthalmologist who had been monitoring the twins' condition, called Marcus with results that left him speechless. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to see you and the children immediately," she said, her voice carrying an urgency that made Marcus's heart race. The latest tests show something extraordinary. An hour later, Marcus sat in Dr. Wong's office with Sophia and the twins, his hands gripping the chair arms as the doctor explained her findings. Emma and Ethan's vision is completely normal, Dr. Wong said, her words hanging in the air like a thunderbolt. Not just improved, perfect. There's no evidence of any visual impairment, past or present. Marcus felt the world tilt around him. That's impossible. They've been behaving as if they can't see for 2 years. Multiple doctors confirmed the diagnosis of psychogenic blindness. Dr. Wong pulled up brain scans and eye exam results on her computer screen. These new tests tell a different story. Their brains show no signs of trauma-related vision suppression. Their eyes are healthy and fully functional. Whatever caused their withdrawal from the world wasn't blindness, real or psychogenic. Sophia, who had been quietly observing the children during this conversation, suddenly realized something that made her gasp. Emma and Ethan were sitting calmly, not surprised or confused by the doctor's revelation. In fact, they were exchanging a look that could only be described as relief. "Children," Sophia said gently, "did you hear what Dr. Wong just said?" Both twins nodded solemnly. Emma spoke first, her voice clear and steady. "We could always see Sophia. We just pretended we couldn't." The room fell into stunned silence. Marcus stared at his daughter, struggling to process what she had just admitted. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Sophia asked, her voice carefully calm despite her racing heart. Ethan, emboldened by his sister's honesty, explained in his thoughtful way. "After Mama died, everyone kept staring at us. At the funeral, at the grocery store, everywhere we went. They looked at us like we were broken or sad or different. Their eyes made us feel worse." Emma nodded, adding, "So we decided to stop looking back. If we didn't see them staring, maybe they would stop. And if we acted like we couldn't see, maybe people would leave us alone to remember Mama without everyone watching." Marcus felt his world shifting on its axis. His children hadn't lost their sight due to trauma. They had chosen to withdraw from a world that felt intrusive and overwhelming in their grief. They had created their own form of protection by refusing to engage visually with a reality that had become too painful. "But you walked into things you acted like you couldn't navigate," Marcus began, his voice trailing off as understanding dawned. "We had to make it believable," Ethan explained matter-of-factly. "If adults thought we were just being stubborn or difficult, they would have made us stop. But if they thought we couldn't help it, they would leave us alone." Dr. Wong, who had witnessed many unusual cases in her career, shook her head in amazement. "I've never seen anything like this. 2 8-year-old children maintaining such a complex deception for 2 years, even during medical examinations." Sophia began to understand the full scope of what the twins had accomplished. They had essentially created their own witness protection program, hiding in plain sight from a world that felt too overwhelming to face. "Why are you telling us now?" Sophia asked gently. Emma and Ethan looked at each other, having one of their silent twin conversations. Then, Emma smiled, the first genuine, full smile Marcus had seen from her since Sarah's death. "Because Sophia made the world feel safe again," Emma said simply. "When she plays music and doesn't stare at us like we're broken, when she lets Ethan watch bugs without asking him why he's not playing with toys instead, when she talks about Mama like she was real and wonderful instead of whispering about how sad everything is." Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "Sophia sees us the way Mama did. Like we're interesting and smart, not like we're problems that need fixing." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he realized the profound intelligence and emotional sophistication his children had displayed. They had diagnosed their own need for space and protection, implemented a solution that gave them that space, and maintained it until they felt ready to re-engage with the world. "I'm so sorry," Marcus whispered to his children. "I should have understood what you needed." Emma climbed into her father's lap for the first time in months. "You tried, Papa. Everyone tried. But They try to pull us back too fast. Sophia waited for us to be ready to come back ourselves. Sophia sat quietly, processing the revelation. Everything made sense now. The children's careful navigation of spaces, their ability to respond to subtle changes in routine, their awareness of people's movements around them. They had been fully aware of their environment the entire time, just choosing not to visually engage with it. "Are you angry with us?" Ethan asked Sophia, worry creeping into his voice. Sophia knelt down, so she was at eye level with both children. "I'm not angry at all. I'm amazed by how smart and brave you are. You found a way to protect yourselves when the world felt too hard. That takes incredible strength." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But I'm also proud of you for deciding you're ready to see the world again. That takes even more courage." The drive home was filled with chatter as Emma and Ethan pointed out everything they were officially seeing for the first time in 2 years. They excitedly described changes to their neighborhood, new buildings, seasonal decorations, all things they had been aware of but hadn't allowed themselves to openly acknowledge. "Look, Papa, they painted the Johnsons' house blue," Emma exclaimed, pressing her face to the car window. "The oak tree by the park lost a big branch in that storm last month," Ethan added, his powers of observation clearly unimpaired by his years of pretending not to see. That evening, Marcus found Sophia sitting in the garden, watching the twins play together for the first time since their mother's death. They were running around, laughing, fully engaged with their environment and each other. "They fooled everyone," Marcus said, sitting beside her. "Doctors, specialists, everyone. Children are often much wiser than adults give them credit for," Sophia replied. "They knew what they needed to heal, even if they couldn't articulate it in ways adults could understand." Marcus watched his children, marveling at their resilience and intelligence. "How did you know? How did you see what the rest of us missed?" Sophia considered the question carefully. "I didn't know they could see, but I did know they were complete, intelligent people who had found their own way to cope with loss. I never saw them as broken, so I never tried to fix them. I just tried to create an environment where they could be themselves, whatever that looked like." As if sensing they were being discussed, Emma ran over to where the adults Saturday, 6 months after the remarkable revelation about the twin site, the Blackwood mansion had transformed into something Sarah would have recognized, a true family home filled with laughter, music, and the beautiful chaos of childhood joy. Emma had enrolled in piano lessons and discovered she had inherited her mother's natural musical ability. Her teacher, amazed by her ear for melody and rhythm, suggested she audition for the youth symphony. Ethan had become the mansion's unofficial naturalist, creating detailed journals about the insects and birds he observed in the gardens. He had even convinced his father to install special habitats to attract butterflies and beneficial insects. Sophia had seamlessly evolved from nanny to something more significant, a cherished member of the family who understood each person's needs and helped them flourish. She had her own suite in the mansion now, and Marcus had insisted she pursue her master's degree in child development, funding her education as a small token of his gratitude. But it was during Emma's first piano recital that Marcus realized how completely Sophia had changed their lives. The community center was packed with proud families as young musicians performed their pieces. When Emma took the stage in her blue velvet dress, Marcus held his breath. This was her first public performance since returning to the world of sight and sound. Emma sat at the piano bench, adjusted her posture the way her teacher had taught her, and began playing a piece she had composed herself. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, a musical story about a little girl who got lost in darkness but found her way back to the light with help from a friend. As Emma played, Marcus noticed something that made his heart overflow with pride. His daughter was looking directly into the audience, making eye contact with individual people as she performed. The child who had once hidden from the world's gaze was now confidently sharing her gift with everyone present. When Emma finished, the applause was thunderous. But Marcus's attention was captured by Sophia, who was wiping tears from her eyes as she watched Emma bow gracefully to the audience. After the recital, families gathered for refreshments. Marcus watched as Emma, and Ethan moved confidently through the crowd, chatting with other children and adults, completely at ease in social situations that would have been impossible just months earlier. "Your children are remarkable," said Dr. Martinez, a family therapist who had heard about the twins' unusual case. "In 30 years of practice, I've never seen such a complete transformation. Whatever approach you used worked miracles." Marcus looked across the room at Sophia, who was helping Ethan explain his latest insect discovery to a fascinated group of adults. "We found someone who believed in them when they couldn't believe in themselves," he replied simply. On the drive home, Emma chatted excitedly about her performance while Ethan planned modifications to his butterfly garden. The car was filled with the comfortable noise of a happy family, something Marcus had thought he might never experience again. That evening, after the children were asleep, Marcus found Sophia on the garden terrace, grading papers for her graduate program. The sight of her surrounded by books, completely focused on her studies, stirred something deep in his chest. Over the months, Marcus had watched Sophia not just heal his children, but grow and flourish herself. She had bloomed under the encouragement and educational opportunities he provided, pursuing her passion for child development with the same intuitive wisdom she had shown with Emma and Ethan. "Thank you," Marcus said simply, settling into the chair beside her. Sophia looked up from her textbook, smiling. "For what this time?" "For giving my children back their childhood. For helping them understand that the world can be safe and beautiful again. For showing me what real strength looks like." Sophia closed her book and gave Marcus her full attention. They did the hard work, Marcus. They chose to trust again, to engage with life again. That kind of courage can't be taught. It comes from within. "But you created the environment where that courage could grow," Marcus insisted. "You saw what they needed when everyone else, including me, was focused on what we thought they lacked." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the night sounds in the garden. Crickets chirping, leaves rustling in the breeze, the distant sound of a fountain. "Sophia," Marcus said quietly, "I need to tell you something." She turned to look at him, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "Somewhere along the way, watching you love my children back to life, I fell in love with you," Marcus continued, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I know the situation is complicated. You came here as an employee, and I don't want you to feel any pressure. But I needed you to know how I feel." Sophia's eyes widened, but Marcus saw warmth rather than shock in her expression. "I've been wondering when you would realize that," she said softly, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "You've been wondering?" Marcus was surprised. "Marcus, I didn't just help your children heal. Being here, being trusted with Emma and Ethan's care, being supported in my education. This family helped me discover who I was meant to be. I love your children as if they were my own. And I love you for the father you are, the man you've become, and the future we could build together." Marcus felt his heart soar. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that I've been part of this family in my heart for months. I was just waiting for you to catch up," Sophia laughed, her eyes sparkling with joy. 6 months later, Marcus and Sophia stood in the mansion's garden, surrounded by friends, family, and the community they had built around their unconventional love story. Emma, now 10, played a wedding march she had composed specifically for the occasion. Ethan, serving as ring bearer, had insisted on incorporating butterflies into the ceremony by timing the event to coincide with the peak of his butterfly garden's bloom. As they exchanged vows, Marcus marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had started as a desperate search for someone to care for his traumatized children had become the foundation for a love deeper and more meaningful than anything he had imagined possible. "You saved my children," Marcus whispered to Sophia as they danced to Emma's piano music during the reception. "We saved each other," Sophia replied, looking around at Emma and Ethan, who were teaching other children about the butterflies in Ethan's garden. "All 4 of us." Emma ran up to them, her face glowing with happiness. "Are we going to be a real family now?" she asked. "We've been a real family for a long time, sweetheart," Sophia said, kneeling to Emma's level. "Today we're just making it official." Ethan joined them, carefully carrying a butterfly that had landed on his finger. Look, Sophia, it's a monarch. They migrate thousands of miles to find their home. Sophia smiled at the symbolism, understanding that Ethan was sharing his own story through his love of nature. Just like we all found our way home to each other, she said. As the sun set over the garden, the new family stood together, watching the butterflies dance among the flowers. Emma hummed a gentle melody. Ethan pointed out different species to his new mother, and Marcus held Sophia close, marveling at how love had transformed their broken pieces into something beautiful and whole. The children who had once hidden from the world were now confident, creative, and deeply loved. The father who had lost hope had rediscovered joy, and the young woman who had arrived as a caregiver had become the heart of a family that proved love could overcome any obstacle. In the distance, Mrs. Henderson watched the celebration from the kitchen window, tears of joy streaming down her face. After all the loss and darkness, the Blackwood mansion was finally filled with light again. The family that had once been lost had found their way back to each other, guided by love, patience, and the unshakable belief that healing was always possible. The twins who had been thought to be blind had opened everyone's eyes to the true meaning of seeing, not just with vision, but with the heart. And in doing so, they had created a future filled with infinite possibility and unconditional love. Sophia, will you still be our nanny now that everyone knows we can see? She asked, suddenly worried. If your father wants me to stay, and if you want me to stay, then I'd love to keep being part of your family, Sophia assured her. Emma threw her arms around Sophia's neck. We want you to stay forever and ever. Marcus felt his heart swell as he watched the bond between Sophia and his children. She had given them back their sight, but more importantly, she had given them back their trust in the world. And somehow, in the process, she had become an essential part of their family's healing and future. I don't know how to thank you, he said simply. You don't need to thank me, Sophia replied. Emma and Ethan did the hard work of healing. I just provided a safe space for it to happen. It's more than that, Marcus insisted. You saw something in them that everyone else, including me, had stopped looking for. You believed they could come back when the rest of us were starting to think they never would. Sophia smiled softly. Children are resilient in ways adults often forget. They want to connect, to love, to explore the world. Sometimes they just need someone to believe in their ability to heal. Marcus realized he was looking at Sophia differently now. She wasn't just his children's nanny. She was the person who had brought his family back from the brink of permanent loss. Emma and Ethan were becoming themselves again, but more than that, they were becoming new versions of themselves that incorporated their experience with loss into a deeper capacity for appreciation and love. The house that had felt like a mausoleum was becoming a home again, and Sophia was the architect of that transformation. We keep building trust, Sophia said. We let them know it's safe to feel again, safe to remember their mother, safe to love again. It won't happen overnight, but I believe they want to come back to the world. They just need to know the world is ready to welcome them. As if summoned by their conversation, Emma appeared in the garden doorway. She stood silently for a moment, then walked directly to Sophia and placed her small hand on Sophia's arm. She didn't speak, but the gesture was clear. She was choosing connection over isolation. Marcus felt hope blooming in his chest like a flower after a long winter. His children were finding their way back, one small step at a time. And Sophia was the guide who had made it possible.